Donald Trump, take notes, because right now the American people are mad at you. Call it a reckoning if you want, not just for Trump, but for those lawmakers who've hitched their wagons to the MAGA movement. 60% disapprove of Donald Trump's performance as president. It's a near record low for him. On tariffs, which are the signature tool of his economic masterminding, he's 23 points underwater.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. The reckoning is coming. As a bleeding heart, Constitution-loving veteran, I wish this was all because of Donald Trump's assaults on our foundational rights and on the dignity of my neighbors. But as is usually true in peacetime politics, much of this is coming down to Donald Trump's job performance on so-called kitchen table issues. And I'll take it, because if egg and gas prices are what it takes to wake Americans up to the utter incompetence of this administration, we'll use that. It's an opening, a way to talk about the existential issue, Donald Trump's creation of a police state and a private army, ICE, that answers only to Donald Trump. There are a handful of places in this country that can serve as a real test of just how unpopular Trump's populism really is, and Montana is one of them. That is a state that Trump won in the last election by nearly 20 points. But even in blood red Montana, there are signs of a mood shift. And if it happens there, it'll happen everywhere. I asked Ryan Busse to join me. He was Montana's Democratic nominee for governor in the last cycle, and he has kept his finger on the pulse of issues that affect families and workers, not just in Montana, but around the country. And he has thoughts on how attitudes towards Trump are shifting. Here's our conversation. Welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show. I've got Ryan Busse back. He is a former firearms executive turned whistleblower, gubernatorial candidate in Montana, and an outspoken advocate not just for gun safety, but for public lands, for the working man down there and woman down there in Montana. Ryan, how's it looking now? There seems to be a vibe shift across the country, but Montana is its own thing.
Yeah, well, I hope there's a vibe shift, because the real impacts of what working people and just average everyday Montana citizens are feeling from the Republican GOP MAGA control and policies. I don't know the scientific term for it, but ain't good. The stuff that we're staring down the barrel here of is frightening. The Medicaid cuts alone, I think, have the real potential to close a huge number of rural clinics and hospitals in this state and remove tens of thousands of Montanans from healthcare coverage. That, combined with what they're doing to the ACA and the reimbursement rates, it's going to be a healthcare disaster. Of course, we've seen the overt attacks on public lands, which are a huge deal to Montanans, but a huge deal to people who visit and vacation and go to places like Glacier Park and the Bob Marshall Wilderness and the Frank Church Wilderness and the Big Hole River and the Missouri River places. You fly fish and you dream of coming to Montana. So those are having real impacts for us, for our economy, and for everybody else. And I think voters are and I focus on kind of the crossover, not the MAGA diehards. They ain't ever changing their mind, right? Trump could light their houses on fire with their families in them, and they'd still be pro-MAGA. But the crossover voters who just casually voted for Trump or voted for Republicans, these are the people who are really being hurt. And I do think there's a vibe shift there.
There are going to be a lot of people watching this, and I sometimes succumb to this myself, who say, the signals were all there. This is not a surprise. There's no mystery that these cuts were coming. There's no mystery that the tariffs were going to hurt regular people if you just paid attention. Why now? I mean, it's a little late, after the election to start complaining about the guy you put into the office. How do you respond to that?
Yep. I look at him, give him a hug, and say, you're right. And also, do you want to win or you want to keep saying that shit? The truth is, one of the first big Substacks I wrote was entitled "We Didn't Vote for This," and it goes right to the point you're making. It's easy for those of us who follow politics and who are dedicated to being in elections, to caring so much that we get up and read the news every day and watch podcasts like this. It's easy for us to say, gee, Christmas, didn't you see this coming? Like he told you he was going to tariff everything. He told you he was going to fire X, Y, and Z. Yeah, he did. But most of the people who, the voters that we're talking about, even though they technically voted for that side of the aisle, they didn't vote for this. And by this, I mean, they're not tuned into politics like you and I are. They didn't know or glossed over the sorts of policy impacts, the sort of gutting of Medicaid, the Project 2025. Like that was just all, like I say, it's like Charlie Brown's teacher talking like, wah, 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 wah. Like they don't hear that stuff. And I know that's frustrating to those of us who do. Now, the people on the far right, the MAGA diehards, yeah, they heard it. They like it. They want ICE mask scaring U.S. citizens, ripping apart families. They want that. They want Medicaid gutted. They want people to go without health care. Yes, they did vote for that. They want tariffs till the tariffs hit them. But the large group of people in the middle, and I know people say, well, there's really no crossover voters anymore. There's really no, I just don't buy that. There's a bunch of people who casually voted for Trump who in the past have casually voted for Democrats. And the things that Trump is doing now are impacting these people. And we have to make sure they understand why their health care is going away, why tariffs are killing the economy. They are casual voters. They don't tune into this.
Hey, it's Ken Harbaugh. Quick break to say thank you to everyone who's been following and supporting this show and this channel. None of it happens without you. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my Substack page, I'd really appreciate the follow. It's a great way to make sure you never miss an episode. It's free to sign up. And if you're able to pitch in a few bucks, every dollar goes back into the show. Just search for The Ken Harbaugh Show on Substack or click the link below. Thanks. Tell us about Montana Knife Company.
Okay, what a rich story we got here on this dude. Guy, Josh Smith is his name. He and by the way, this has been a big national story too. So I'm not telling some back home story about a Montanan down the road here. I am that, but it's a bigger story than that. So Josh is a huge MAGA influencer, starts a podcast, quits his job, and he's a casual knife maker 5 or 6 years ago in his garage, builds nice knives, like hunting knives, some kitchen knives, starts a company 5 years ago called Montana Knife Company. By the way, under the presidency of Joseph Biden. And he starts his company and it goes nuts. And his podcast goes nuts. And he has every right-wing influencer, Tulsi Gabbard, he's best buddies with Donald Trump Jr. So this sort of hardcore, like MAGA diatribe that comes out of these sorts of right-wing podcasts, this guy is a purveyor of it, but his business is going good too. He is on the stage with Donald Trump. He has, inauguration watch parties in DC. The who's who of the MAGA world visit his podcast. Then a few months after the election, as Josh is building a new factory, some of which was funded, by the way, with grants from the presidency of Joseph R. Biden, he's building this new factory, and the stuff he's putting in the factory the prices start to skyrocket, and the steel he's going to buy begins to skyrocket. And Josh freaks out. And he apparently, I don't know this, but apparently he tried to call his MAGA buddies who said, sorry, President loves tariffs. And Josh starts going on his podcast and doing social media rants about, holy shit, the tariffs are going to ruin my business. This machine I'm buying from Germany is up $300,000. This and blah, 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 blah. So the tariffs have come home to roost for Montana Knife Company. And Josh is beside himself. And it's sort of a case study on this one. There's a bunch of schadenfreude in. I get it. Like, he knew what was coming. He was on the stage with Trump. He heard tariffs all the time. So it's very tough to feel sorry for Josh Smith. He knew it was coming. But the 100 people that work for him, I bet you a third of those didn't know what was coming. And it's a case study on, like, on the FO of the FAFO.
I think Josh might fall in the category of those who, if Donald Trump set their house on fire with their family in it, he'd still vote for Donald Trump.
No doubt about it.
He hasn't given any indication otherwise, but I'm glad that you're focusing on the other people who are being hurt, and they might be gettable. My question for you has to do with the Democratic brand, though, because we are hearing that, the only thing as unpopular as Republicans out there are Democrats. How do you parse that? How do you win people over, not just away from Republicans, but into the Democratic fold?
Well, there's really no getting around the fact that, it's a national branding game now. And if you doubt that, my friend John Tester, 18-year senator, there's no way a guy like that should lose a race like he just did by 9 points. And he didn't lose because he was a bad senator. He didn't lose because he didn't have his own brand. He didn't lose because he didn't have enough money. God knows. Gee, Christmas is the most expensive Senate race per capita in the history of the country. But the reason John lost, and I think the reason I lost and other Democrats here lost, is because the national brand of the Democrats had been so successfully sullied by the Republican machine, and frankly, by Democratic intransigence and stupidity, that we are where we are now. Now, how do you fix it? Honestly, I think it's people like you, like me, who we get out and do and say the things that we do and say in private. And I know, because I've done it, like this, the sorts of fear that the Democratic groups, the advocacy groups in the Democratic sphere have forced to be permeated through Democratic campaigns has got to stop. For instance, look, I'm a pretty plain-spoken dude. You can probably see, like, I don't hold a lot back. And even in our campaign, there were times when we didn't say it exactly like we should have said it. We didn't come out. Why? Because you're afraid that there's some advocacy group in the room that might get pissed off and go write an internet diatribe. And, and we just have to be done with that. There these small little slivers of advocacy groups that are controlling us being real people. Like these casual voters, they see that, right? The carefulness with which the Harris campaign controlled her sort of social media presence, podcast presence, the average voter sees that. They now want people to be real people, to like have a beer, to cuss, to say a politically incorrect thing once in a while, to give your real opinion, to get pissed off like normal people get pissed off about working conditions or healthcare. Like we say all these things as Democrats, we say the country's in peril. We say health, but we don't act like it. We don't, like, as a party, that doesn't permeate our actions like a normal person would act. And I think it just is going to take leaders to get out there and do what we know we should have been doing, which is be normal humans.
I think authenticity is definitely the name of the game these days. But I also think there's a massive role that disinformation played. When you look at surveys of Republicans, those crossover voters especially, who voted for Trump, and what they actually believe or believed about the Democratic Party, it was like off the charts false. It was based on disinformation, especially around those three areas: the economy, crime, and immigration. They believe things about the Democratic Party that just weren't true. So as important as authenticity is, I also think we're losing the information battle. This is a communications problem as well.
Yeah. Well, but so take that immigration one. And there were a lot of us, including Tester, who knew that early on in Biden's presidency, I really think the dereliction of duty on the border with the Biden administration led to the disastrous anti-constitutional evil shit that we are seeing now. And Democrats should have said that. You can't have 4 years of taking your eye off the ball like the Biden administration did and then not have some reaction. Now, again, you and I know that this reaction of basically hiring, cops who have been kicked off the force because because they can't abide by normal rules of decent behavior, and hiring them as ICE agents, giving them a mask and an AR and telling them to go like raid Walmarts and Home Depots. Like, that is going to lead to horrific constitutional and freedom challenging problems, and has already. And it's just wrong.
Well, Ryan, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for the updates. Fingers crossed for Montana. Let's check in again soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.